What's up? This one goes out to my fellas, man. And basically today I'm going to discuss with you guys how not to be caught in a tricky situation, man. All right, as part of that, I'm going to keep the scenery in this vlog to a little bit of the streets, and then we're going to take it indoors, right? Why? Because sometimes, man, some of them belong to the streets, some of them don't. But how do you keep yourself from being caught in that sticky situation? That sticky situation where you don't know which one she belongs to. And as part of that, luckily for you guys, I got 2 story times and a little bit of information, giving you guys enough to ponder and then make your decision, right? Because listen, at the end of the day, man, it just comes down to your actions. You can't control what other people do. You can only control what you do with good information. So let's go. Now, a lot of the developing countries that we look at when we're traveling or when we're having a good time or when we're looking for something outside of the United States, everybody got their own reason for what they do. The reality is this. Most of those cultures, people are living like family oriented. They're also living extended families. That basically means like, you're living with generations in the same household. That's starting to happen in the United States now because of the economy. But we know that traditionally, at 18 to 21, you would move out your parents' house. A lot of these countries is not really the same, right? You might be living with your grandparents, your parents, and then you're the younger person, right? And along with that comes a kind of lifestyle, certain expectations, and certain situations. I'll tie it all together. But first, let me go into the first story. Now, in many of these countries, because of that same extended family way of living and people being in groups of friends and friends introducing one group to another group, especially in places like Colombia, you got to understand that, people are not going to look at it as the individualistic culture like you're coming from in the West. If a friend is doing something not too much and they up and up, or even a family member, unless it's going to get real serious, everybody's going to view it like, well, that's not really my business. Maybe it's casual. Maybe it's not casual. We'll see how far it goes. They're not going to go and tell that person, hey, I think this person might be using you, or, hey, I hope you know what's going on here. Is this beneficial for you? Or, hey, this person might be trying to take advantage of you a little bit. They'll be the family members. They'll just be like, well, this person's having a good time. As long as this other person's happy, everybody's having a good time. So they're not going to warn you. They're not going to give you the details of the pitfalls. Not because you're meeting the cousin, the auntie, the brother, and the sister. That means that in their mind, they're like, let me tell this person that at the end of the day, this person is not serious about them, because they're expecting that people in their culture know that that's how it operates, and to watch themselves in case it's the wrong scenario, that you should too. They don't know your culture is different. Like you don't know many times their culture is different, right? So they're not going to say, hey, watch out. You might get into a tricky situation. They're coming from friendly cultures and friendly societies. This is going to be friendly to you. It don't mean that because you are seeing those things happening that it means that you're in a better situation than you had at home necessarily, right? You got to learn to read the tea leaves. So I got to give information for everybody, right? And a few years back, I'm coming into Santo Domingo. I'm in an Uber. And you got to understand cultural differences, people. And let me tell you what happened in this Uber that tells you a lot about how here in the DR, people view certain activities and certain things that people do in order to meet other people a certain way that you necessarily might not view that way, and you might misread and get yourself into a sticky situation. I'm traveling down from Puerto Plata, got to Santo Domingo, jumped in my Uber. I got like 4 days before I fly out to Colombia, right? Me and the Uber driver got stuck in traffic. He speaks some English. I speak just enough Spanish. So we start Spanglishing it up. He learning from me. I'm learning from him. He ended up asking me, of course, after a while, what I'm doing this. I said, well, I've been in the country for a little bit. I got a little something here, but I'm about to fly out to Colombia. So he kind of laughed. He said, really? Ah, man, so how did y'all meet and everything? I'm like, I already know what you thinking. Just about the tone of how he said it. He thinking we met online or something like that. So I'm like, nah, I actually met her at her job. I was like, why? He started laughing. He's like, well, a lot of the guys foreigners, they use Dominican Cupid. I said, Dominican Cupid, that's horrible. He's like, yeah, I know, but they'll think it's serious, but many times it's just about the money. He's like, I even got family members who about the same thing. You know, the girl's really about the money, the dude takes it more serious, and he thinks there's more to it. And it's just how the culture is. The family members might benefit, so they ain't gonna say nothing. I was like, hey, tell me a little bit more about that. I was like, tell me where the good girls really are. He's like, well, none of them are really online. You got to meet them by just running into them, getting introduced by other people. He's like, even we know the ones who are online are just for fun, but culturally, we could tell the difference between this girl, that girl. Even when we look for the fun girls who ain't going to give us a hard time, we only, pretty much, he said, we put them into that category, and we don't take it too serious. But then we know where to find the other girls who is about family and everything else. So fellas, learn from that. All right, now story time experience number 2 is during the pandemic. So, unfortunately for me at that time, everything was pretty much closed, right? The country was reopened, but they still had curfews, and most of the major businesses, lounges, bars, whatever, all that stuff was closed. So in my boredom, I decided, hell, you know what? I know I'm already tired of like the Tinders of the world and the Tagged and the Badus, but I'm gonna keep accounts on all those, and I'm just going to entertain myself. So I start swiping. I'm matching up with a whole bunch of the professionals, but then every once in a while I'll match up with somebody who regular. So I'm in Puerto Plata. I match up with this girl in Santo Domingo. So I'm like, all right, perfect, because she looked regular. She did not look like the typical one on the site, and I could chit chat with her. So we exchanged WhatsApp information. We started video chatting, right? Sure enough, Shorty looks like her photo. She seems cool. I'm now inquisitive. I'm like, why are you on this website? So she started to break it down to me. Now, the first positive sign, if you want to put it that way, was this girl didn't speak any English, right? I mean, she wasn't faking it. A month into talking, she still didn't really speak any English. And obviously, I got a little bit more Spanish than I let on for you guys in the videos. Yeah, I strike up conversations by saying I'm the gringo who don't know enough Spanish. Hey, this is what it is. So we would FaceTime, she would smile, I would do my little horrible Spanish. She would understand just enough. Others I would just translate for her using Google Translate. So we kept going, we had enough chemistry, right? As I find out more and more about her, though, I find out, okay, she's got 2 kids. One was a teenager, 16 years old. The other child was 6 years old. And I'm like, okay, baby mama. All right, 2 different baby daddies. So, you know me. If you guys been watching my channel long enough, I don't take baby mamas seriously. It's just my thing, fellas. You could do whatever you want. So I'm already like, if I do mess with this, I ain't going to take this too serious, right? No, she did ask what I'm looking for. I ain't lied to her. I let her know, hey, you know what? Came out of a long relationship, just looking for somebody I could vibe with. Nothing too serious, not looking for any marriage, nothing, drastic. No real, not looking to jump into a relationship. She was like, cool, because she got out of something. And, she'd been single for like 3 years. Yeah, she looking for somebody that she vibe with, but she ain't looking to just jump into nothing right away either. So I'm like, perfect. All right, fast forward. Shorty came to see me. But before I get into that, let's put it this way. She had 2 jobs. Normal girl, working in a doctor's office as like the receptionist. Then on the side, she had a little side businesses where she would clean businesses, right? She's like, oh, I use the link up to the doctor. And usually after I finish my side job is I go and I clean different doctor's offices, right? When they're closed. So this is how I make my living. And, I live on my own. Yeah, I got some family members, but it's just me and my kids. Baby daddy of one of them is involved. Baby daddy of the other one is not involved. So she comes up, spend a weekend by me, see how I'm living. We were supposed to go to the beach, never made it there. We had a good time, right? She goes back home. Now, I was still in the process of doing my dental, so there was like a 3-month healing period, and then I had to go back down to Santo Domingo to see my dentist again, right? So, guys, I first came into the country doing dental work, stayed in Santo Domingo for like a month and a half, then moved up to Puerto Plata, stayed there. After my gum healed, I had to come back down to see the dentist again. So, I did several trips, right? More than one work. So when I would come back down to Santo Domingo, I booked a hotel at the time. Shorty would get off work, still had her work uniform on. She would just come over to the hotel, right? Had a good time. But I noticed within that period of time that she seemed a little different, right? She didn't seem as kept. Now, the pandemic affected a lot of people at the time. Now, we were talking the entire time, right? Now, I know where you guys' minds are headed. You thinking like, oh, she gonna be like, oh man, you're a baby daddy or something. I'm like, nah, nothing like that, right? Shorty's talking about how, her job ain't going the best and she's stressed out and she just needs some place to hang out. And then she's like, oh, maybe I could come up and stay by you for a little bit. Now I'm like, huh? What do you mean by that? And then what are you talking about? She's like, oh, me and the kids, I could bring the kids up there and we could hang out for a while and, something happened to the other job where she cleaning the places. And I'm like, yeah, that's all good. But my first thought was, I ain't trying to meet this girl's kids. But she's trying to sell this like she just really need a break and kind of like a vacation for like 1 or 2 weeks. Now, fellas, here's why it's very important that you learn the laws and the cultures and the customs of a country. See, I already have my ears to the ground, and I had already seen dudes fall into the pitfall because of certain laws in this country where if a woman comes into your house with clothes, and it exists in America too, by the way, it's certain depending on the state you're living in, and they come with especially kids, man. Something happened, it's the worst to get them out your house, right? It's almost like insta-family. The laws, she could sell wherever she want, and then she could be like, well, I pretty much live here. And yeah, eventually you're going to get her out of there, but you don't want to go through that headache. So that's the first thing that popped into my mind. I'm like, shorty ain't doing too well right now. That's not a good look. So I basically said yes to her, but I said no to the kids. But just before I said that, though, she even tried to say, no, I could even I could pay you. I know you got 2 rooms. Man, she didn't know I got 2 rooms, right? And we were only using 1. So she's like, oh, I could even give you a little bit of money, like I'm renting it from you. And I was like, red flag, potential tricky situation, right? I mean, hell, at minimum, she trying to get me to be Captain Saver, and this was a normal girl. But fellas, you got to know what you want and you got to know what type they're going at, right? So I didn't know at that time where to go, what to do. So here's how you avoid a tricky situation in these countries, man. I'll make it simple. Hang in the places where people don't need you. If you come in for fun, there'll always be that. You still got Tinder, right? It ain't going nowhere. But spend 90% of your time not in the sewers of the world unless you coming in just for 2 days and you only know what you're looking for. And even that, man, you could branch out from that. You could be in Santiago, you could be in Santo Domingo, and you could still use Tinder just for that 2 days. But fellas who don't want to get caught up in the BS, here's what you do, man. You jump on something like Airbnb and you look up the high price Airbnbs and then you click on them, right? And you see which locations they're in. Just that simple. Now, even if you don't book that kind of Airbnb for that high price, now you know the areas that got people living comfortable like you that you can afford. And you make sure that you write those down and you Google map it, right? When you're in that country, use your Uber for like $4 or $5, $3, depending on whether you're in Colombia or Brazil or wherever. And you can move around to these different areas. You're in the high upscale areas. You're going into those bars, those lounges, those, clubs, wherever. But you now know that the caliber of the people who are going to be able to get in there and the women who will be in those places that you'll run into is women that have options, right? Now, you might not be able to pull all of those every night to go home with you and you're looking for easy and quick, but this is where your Tinder and all that comes in anyway for you guys who are into that lifestyle. For the guys who want to graduate from that, that's where you meet the women, man. That's where you meet the quality and the ones who ain't going to necessarily need you or want you for what you can bring to the table only. And, a benefit. When you're in these countries where there's not English, guess what? Now you have the option that the education increases and the potential that the girl speaks, even if not perfectly, she speaks some English. You're going to meet that dentist, not because the girl's a nurse, by the way, here, or a doctor means they make a lot of money. You guys got to realize these countries is not like the States. A lot of them work for the government. They get paid a little bit of money compared to you. But the quality goes up and there's less likelihood that you'll end up in one of these sticky situations. Go to payhip.com/RichesMethod. Download Traveler's Cheat Sheet. That's a guide to dating, safety, and travel. And if you'd like to live abroad, I've also got a book for that. That's called The Good Life, How to Live or Slow Travel Abroad. And for y'all who need just a little bit of help on the financial side of how to make this happen, I got the financial cheat sheet. All of them available for instant download. And I'll check you guys on the next one.